Hello, how have you all been? It's been a very long time, probably 2 months or so, and a lot has happened in the intervening time since my last video. But the biggest thing that has happened is that I was able to finish my second tenure as the head of the Department of English. So I'm much relieved now, and I think I can get back to posting videos. I hope to do that a little bit more frequently than I have been. So, sorry about that. I have been following the news of the death of Prince Philip, and I have been following the coverage that is being given to the story on British television. I usually watch Sky News, but on YouTube one gets little clips from other television programs as well. Yesterday, of course, was his funeral, which I watched on the BBC. And this morning on my YouTube feed, there were several suggested videos. And there was one which was a recording of a broadcast that happened day before yesterday, so the day before the funeral. And there was a friend of Prince Philip who was being interviewed. Usually when people talk about the royals, they tend to be incredibly boring because they only have the most wonderful, inane, nice things to say, which is enough to put anyone to sleep. So I started watching the video, but not expecting much. But I was very surprised by something that this gentleman said, and that made me sit up and pay attention to what is being said. He said that apparently at one point Prince Philip said that what we need right now are more amateurs. And I thought that was a bizarre thing to say. Why would one need amateurs? Surely in life one would need more professionals. And then this gentleman, he explained, he said that amateur, if you go to its Latin roots, it means lover. And what I did was I was very, very interested because anything to do with love always interests me. So I was very interested. So I looked it up, and yes, he was right. Amateur, the correct way to pronounce it would be amateur, because that, of course, is a French word. So we, in English, of course, we say it as amateur, but it's amateur. Now, amateur comes from the Italian word amatore, and amatore basically means lover. And I thought that was a remarkable discovery for me to make, because what that basically means is that an amateur or an amateur is basically a lover of what they are doing. So if you say that I'm an amateur musician, or I'm an amateur playwright, or I'm an amateur cricketer, what it basically means that you are doing it not because you have to earn money from it, but because you love it. And that actually set me thinking about the binary, because I always think in binaries. So that set me thinking about binaries and the binary of professional and amateur. So I thought that binary was very, very interesting, because when people say that, oh, he's an amateur, or they are an amateur, what they basically mean is that they are unskilled. They are not very good at it. Yes? Whereas when they say they are professional, they mean that they're very good at it. Now, which basically means that somebody who is a professional is somebody who is skilled. So therefore, what we are looking at here is that a professional is somebody who is skilled, somebody whose work is very perfect. Yes? And if we have to think in terms of, capitalism, or if we have to think in terms of, patriarchy, then what really means is that a professional is of greater help to capitalism, right? A professional is also a greater help to patriarchy. Why? Because a professional produces a product. Patriarchy loves those who produce products. Capitalism loves those who produce products. Patriarchy loves those who produce human babies. Capitalism loves those who are productive in a different capacity, those who produce either services or those who produce objects. So there seems to be that extraordinary binary in which if you put amateur on the one side and professional on the other, then on the side of the amateur would be unskilled, and on the side of the professional would be skilled. So therefore, to say that somebody is very skilled in love is a bit of a contradiction, because you cannot be skilled in love, because if you are an amateur, then going by the patriarchal definition of amateur, you are somebody who is clumsy, somebody who is unskilled, somebody whose work is not particularly perfect. And here I am actually reminded of something that Elizabeth Taylor, not the novelist, but the Hollywood actor, what she had said once. Elizabeth Taylor, as you know very well, is famous not only for her sort of ridiculous beauty and her screen roles, but she's also very famous for having been in many marriages. I think 9, perhaps 8 or 9 marriages. And Elizabeth Taylor, at one point, she had said, marriage is the one thing that practice doesn't make perfect. Now, it was very amusing when I had heard that from Elizabeth Taylor, and this was many years ago. This was after her last marriage broke up. After her last marriage broke up, that is what she said, is that marriage is the one thing that practice doesn't make perfect. And now this morning, when I look back at Elizabeth Taylor's sentence, at her line, I said to myself, yes, of course. For you, Elizabeth Taylor, marriage is the one thing that practice does not make perfect, because you marry for love. For you, marriage is not a professional decision. Had it been a professional decision, you would have made a very good marriage. Because had it been a professional decision, you would have married for money. You would have married for property. You would have married for social prestige. You would have married for rank. You would have married for God knows what other worldly consideration. But your consideration was love. So Elizabeth Taylor, you were an amateur. Well, if you are an amateur, then of course, your love life is going to be clumsy. It is going to be unskilled. It is going to be hopeless. Surely that is what love is about. And I was also thinking about a poem that was written by somebody who subsequently went on to become the Poet Laureate of Britain, Ann Duffy. The present Poet Laureate, of course, is Simon Armitage. You know that. Now, when Diana, Princess of Wales, died on 31st of August 1997, at that time, the Poet Laureate was somebody that readers of literature would know very well, Ted Hughes. So Ted Hughes was the Poet Laureate when Diana, Princess of Wales, died. And Ted Hughes had produced a poem. It's not a poem that is in any way remarkable. But what is remarkable is the poem that Ann Duffy has written, or she wrote. Now, this poem is called September 1997. It's a short poem, but it's such a beautiful poem that I can't resist reading it out entirely. But after reading it out, I'll tell you exactly why that this poem has come back to me now. So this is Carol Ann Duffy's poem, September 1997. Whatever in love means, true love is talented. Someone vividly gifted in love has gone. You went down to St. James's Palace as night fell. Candles shone. You saw a vast and passionate queue silently form, as though history was a giant shaken from sleep by love. Then you looked at your hands. Newsprint covered them like gloves. England's crown is rusting. The century bleeds to its end. You stand in a queue in darkness, mourning an unmet friend. The stranger beside you, the same. A million dying flowers smell like fame. I'm reading this poem after several years, but it is astonishing how fresh the poem still is. But then again, great poetry is like that. It never ages. No, but what I really wanted to talk about is the first three lines of the poem. Whatever in love means. This, of course, is a reference, as many of you will know, to the infamous line that Prince Charles spoke at the interview that he and Lady Diana Spencer gave to the British television camera, to British television the day of their engagement, because the interviewer had asked the royal couple, "And I suppose you're in love?" And Diana had immediately chipped in and she said, "Of course." But Charles had said, "Whatever in love means." Charles wasn't in love then. So that is something which Carol Ann Duffy references over here. She says, whatever in love means, true love is talented. And I think that is something which I thought that I should probably mention. True love is talented. A lot of amateurs, if not all amateurs, tend to be very talented. Somebody who's a professional is not necessarily talented, because you become a professional through practice. Through rigorous practice, you become a professional. But sometimes amateur artists, amateur singers, amateur writers tend to be talented. It is another matter that the talent is never encouraged. It is another matter that the talent never blossoms. It never develops, it never grows. But the talent is there. And over here, Diana, Princess of Wales, is being hailed as somebody who, Carol Ann Duffy says, true love is talented. Somebody vividly gifted in love has gone. Diana, Princess of Wales, was an amateur. She was clumsy. She was emotional. She cried in public. She was not as dignified as the Queen. She was an amateur. So what I really have been thinking about since I saw that YouTube video is this sense that therefore, can there be anything called a professional lover? Perhaps not. Because a lover will always be an amatore, an amateur, an amateur. If love is skilled, if love is calculated, perfect, perhaps it isn't love. If you are making a fool of yourself right now because you're in love with someone, if you are behaving in a clumsy manner because you're in love with someone, if you think that you're an ass because you're in love with someone, that is what you are. You are a true lover because you're an amateur. Anyway, this is my little sort of meditation, my little rumination this Sunday morning. Again, as I told you, I will try and make more videos in the next few months and years. But please do take care of yourself. I realize that the second wave of COVID has well and truly arrived in India. All that we can do is take care of ourselves and take care of those that we care for. Goodbye, and I shall see you again very soon.